Well, this is the first interview done by, well, actually my name, let me introduce myself. You won't see me because John Woo the LAFFING BOODA want to remain invincible. and But he said me. I'm Professor Lao Chi Hu, his time twin cousin, who claim to be able to travel in the astral world and any part of space-time continuum. So I'm the perfect reporter for his show. So now the guest today we arrange on all the days on the day of the mankind's first landing on the moon, July 20th. That was 1969. This is 2014, and I'm at the home of Rabbi David, who is the husband of the vegan expert who cook a lot of vegan meal, and we're going to eat later, and we'll show you some of that video. A true healthy vegan diet, and he'll explain the difference between that and an ordinary vegan diet. But now at this point, we wanted to ask Rabbi David about the language issue. Now, when we want to understand the Bible, the Old or New Testament, many people don't understand the original language that was written in the Hebrew, the Aramaic, the Greek. But Rabbi David will explain to you how you can approach that in the most appropriate way so you get more understanding of the true meaning of the Bible. Rabbi David, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, John.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, firstly, I want to make it clear. I can speak for the Hebrew Bible. I can't really speak for the New Testament,
okay.
Which I understand was written in Greek.
Yeah.
But it's a very different. It's a very different system to the Old Testament in terms of language alone. And
I see.
Perhaps other areas as well. But just as far as language, when you want to understand the Hebrew Bible, it's first and foremost, it's vital and crucial to be able to read it in the original Hebrew.
Okay.
When you read it into a Greek translation, even a good Greek translation,
yes.
I know a lot of the modern Bibles are translated very well because they're translated from the Septuagint, which was a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, which was done very well. The Septuagint, according to Jewish tradition, was done by a council of 70 rabbinic scholars in the times of the Jewish Talmud. All 70, according to Jewish tradition, all 70 translated it separately, and they came up with the identical translation, and this is what we have known as the Septuagint. So it's an excellent translation into Greek. However, it's still a translation. You know, a lot of our Bibles today are translated into English based on the Septuagint, which are good translations, but you're looking at second, third-hand translations. Now, when you understand the original Hebrew, there's so much more meaning and there's so many other dimensions to the language that you don't get in a translation.
I see.
You know, there's reflections on ideas that you can only really understand when you know the Hebrew. Not only that, if you want to truly study and have a strong knowledge in the Hebrew of the Bible, you really have to go back into the pre-Hebrew ancient biblical languages. Like,
what language would that be?
Well, there's a few of them. Firstly, ancient Egyptian is very strongly related to biblical Hebrew. Okay. Pre-Egyptian, there were languages in Canaan that biblical Hebrew later was based off of that also strongly influenced this dialect that we call Hebrew. Before that, there was languages like Akkadian and Sumer. Other related languages would be I can't remember. There's so many of them. It's just slipping my mind.
Those are the major ones, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
Akkadian, Akkadian.
And Sumer were strong influences on the Hebrew biblical language. So there's a mix. I mean, just like if you take French or Spanish or Italian, or even English, you have a little bit of Greek, a little bit of Latin.
That's true.
A little bit of Arabic, right? These are conglomerates of old languages that are perhaps based, Spanish, for example, is based on Latin, but there's a lot of Arabic
True.
in
True.
Spanish, right? A lot of high influence of Arabic. There's probably a little bit of Greek. There's probably a little bit of I don't know, old European languages like Gaul or something. You know,
Like that. Yeah.
the languages as they develop, they're influenced by elements in time and elements in the environment. So biblical Hebrew is the same way. Biblical Hebrew was influenced. Whatever the Jewish people coming out of Egypt who received the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, were speaking and understanding, this is going to be the biblical Hebrew language. There's a professor by the name of Avraham Shalom Yehuda, wrote a magnificent book. It's called Understanding the Language of the Pentateuch. And one of the principles he's using to understand the biblical language is that the Jews were speaking Hebrew. When the Jews came out of Egypt, they were speaking in Hebrew, but they were thinking in Egyptian.
Really?
Yeah. So many biblical phrases are Hebrew direct translations from Egyptian.
Wow.
From ancient Egyptian. Okay, so take, I don't know, an American-born Chinese,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
You're trying to speak Chinese to your grandparents, but you speak English now.
Right.
So oftentimes, what do?
You think in English, yeah, and then you
and
translate
you
it.
translate the words into Chinese, and they don't always come out proper Chinese.
Correct, correct, yeah.
Right? So, because the grammar...
That's my son. My son does that. Yeah.
So there you go. So when the Jews came out of Egypt, their language was Egyptian.
Really?
You know,
Wow.
Of course, they were. They were slaves in Egypt. So
Right. They have to speak some local language, right?
Right,
Yeah.
they had to speak Egyptian. Now, among themselves, they were speaking Hebrew, but you've got to realize their Hebrew was already evolving into an Egyptianized.
Oh,
form of
okay.
Hebrew.
I
So
see. I see.
A lot of the early biblical Hebrew is strongly influenced by Hebrew. So your grammar and your sentence structure already starts taking on an Egyptian character, or a stronger Egyptian
Okay.
character.
How about Hebrew today? Do they still have that strong Egyptian influence?
Well, not really, because again, as language evolves, it changes grammatically and it changes in its character, right?
I see.
So today, modern Hebrew, for sure, is based on biblical. And by the way, not all biblical Hebrew is the same. You know, early biblical Hebrew had the strong Egyptian influence. Later, when the Jews go into Israel, they start evolving the language into more local dialects as well. They went back to Canaan, and they start adapting more of the local language. Ugarit would be one of the languages that influenced the Hebrew that came a little bit later. Now, the modern day Hebrew is strongly influenced. You know, obviously, it's biblically based. But there are words that you don't have in the Bible. I don't know, economy, for example. There's not really a word for an economy.
Okay.
Computer.
Of course.
Right? Gasoline,
Yeah.
car, you know, terms, you know, the news. You know, these are modern words. So inflation.
Right. So what do you do with those? I'm curious.
So there's really two alternatives when you're developing a language. So either you can try to concoct an old word or a combination of 2 or 3 old words to portray the idea that you're trying to express.
Okay.
Right? Much like in the Chinese languages,
Right.
sometimes you take 2 characters and you put them
Oh,
together.
they do that all the time, yeah.
Right? And it comes out as...
And in fact, I can tell you the word computer comes from 2 words, electric brain.
There you go.
Didn't know, didn't know.
Right.
By the way, I want to inject something. This rabbi here speaks Mandarin also. So he's a language expert in many fields. So it's a very interesting person to learn from. Okay, continue, Rabbi.
Thank you, John. So modern Hebrew. So when you want to come up with modern words in an old language, you have 2 alternatives. You can combine old words such as what you mentioned, 电脑 for computer,
电脑, yeah.
electric brain.
Right.
Electric brain is a computer, right? The word for elevator is
din T, electric ladder.
Electric floor. No?
Ladder, like ladder climbing.
So the same thing, you know, you're combining words that are producing an idea that you want to express, right? So in Mandarin, the Chinese are very, very, very good at doing this.
Yeah.
But not all languages are. So in Hebrew, the modern day Hebrew scholars when they don't take old words and put them together to produce new words, right? They just very simply borrow it from another language.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, you have a word for inflation,
Okay.
which is inflacja.
Oh, so it's kind of like a Spanish almost, huh?
Well, it's actually Russian.
Russian, okay.
You know, a lot of modern Hebrew words come from Russian.
Right. There's a lot of Jewish
Some
people in
from-
Russia, yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Which is probably why you came from
Yeah.
coming from there. You have a little bit of English, a little